Let's talk about Trump and the Jews. What a hook to a story. Let's talk about Trump and the Jews, everybody. Trump and the Jews. So Trump kind of claimed the Jews recently, and I mean them as a group, as in the Jews love me, and if they don't love me, then they ain't really Jews, because they hate their own religion and they hate Israel, which Donald Trump sees, maybe because of the people around him or just, you know, things he saw on TV, is therefore representative of all Jews. Israel, the country, is representative of Jews. Therefore, if a Jew isn't standing with Trump, who he believes is better than standing with Israel, then the Jew isn't really standing for Jews because Israel stands for the Jews. Now, I would say in and of itself, saying that Israel stands for the Jews or making a connection that a Jewish person has to support Israel or they hate their own faith, when there are people who have dedicated the entirety of their lives to studying the Torah, studying the faith of Judaism, studying their history, caring about their ancestors, caring about the tradition, and continuing the tradition of the oldest Abrahamic faith, who have no ties to Israel. In fact, some of them even don't like Israel very much, or certainly don't like the current Israeli government. Some have no interest in Zionism. Just like there is no inherent connection between supporting Israel and being a good Jew, or supporting the actions of the Israeli government and being a good Jew. These two things can be totally separate. These two things can be totally separate. That in and of itself, in my opinion, is anti-Semitic. In my opinion. But he doesn't end it there. He says the ones that also vote for Democrats hate their religion. Check this out.
Another shocker from Donald Trump, showing nothing, not even one's faith, is off limits in 2024. If you're an American Jew who votes for Democrats, Donald Trump says you hate your own religion and you hate Israel and you should be ashamed of yourself. We should note American Jews vote Democratic roughly 70% of the time. So that's a lot of Jews that Donald Trump just attacked. Monday, former Trump White House aide Sebastian Gorka asked Trump about criticism that prominent Democrats, including President Biden and Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, have aimed at Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Take a listen.
Why do the Democrats hate Bibi Netanyahu?
I actually think they hate Israel.
Yes.
I don't think they hate him. I think they hate Israel. And the Democrat Party hates Israel. Any Jewish person that votes for Democrats hates their religion. They hate everything about Israel, and they should be ashamed of themselves because Israel will be destroyed.
It's a fairly shocking thing for a presidential candidate to say about any religious minority, but about Jews at this time of rising anti-Semitism in the United States, it is certainly noteworthy. This is not the first time he has lashed out at Jews who don't support him. Just last year, around the high holy days for Jews, Trump shared a social media.
Let me read this. Just a quick reminder for liberal Jews who voted to destroy America and Israel because you believed false narratives. Let's hope you learned from your mistakes and make better choices moving forward. Happy New Year.
Image that said liberal Jews who didn't support him, quote, voted to destroy America and Israel. But that was a repost on Instagram or retruth or whatever.
Retruth or whatever. Okay, so there's a few things that I gotta throw out here. Okay, there's a few things I gotta throw out here. The first thing is this: why do you think Democrats hate Bibi Netanyahu? Now, there are a bunch of reasons. It could be because the type of rhetoric that he's perpetuated is heavily suspected in helping to lead to the assassination of Israeli political leaders. It could be his deep ties to people like Ben Gvir and other far-right Israeli maniacs who are in favor of expanding the settlements in the West Bank and annexing all of the Palestinians, which would lead to countless and endless bloodshed, which we would inevitably, due to the intertwinedness of the United States and Israel and the current relationship between the United States and Israel and its political class, would undoubtedly somehow end up being financed by us in some way, right? So I think that, and not to mention, we have troops in the region, like the 3 troops who were killed in Jordan, the 3 soldiers who were killed there. And we don't want to endanger our own personnel. And if Benjamin Netanyahu is able to take an offer that could possibly bring the risk of that down, say an offer from the Saudis, the United States, and others for the Arabs to rebuild, Arab nations in the region to rebuild the entirety of the Gaza Strip, to accept a Palestinian state in the future, but that it would be it would be demilitarized, meaning it wouldn't be able to pose a traditional military threat to Israel, and that a commitment to said state would be vaguely in the future, on top of the fact that Benjamin Netanyahu would be able to go home and say, hey, look, I got all the hostages back, because all the hostages would be returned. Benjamin Netanyahu rejected this deal on its face, even though polling data suggests the majority of Israelis, even when asked alone, do they support a Palestinian state, they said no, and the numbers increased since October 7th, when told the details of the deal. You get back the hostages. Not only do you get back the hostages, the Arabs will rebuild the Gaza Strip. It's not your job anymore. Not only will the Arabs rebuild the Gaza Strip, but you won't have to have a permanent troop deployment in the Gaza Strip 3, 4, 5 years down the line, which the majority of Israelis oppose. And not only that, but when a future Palestinian state comes, it will be I was about to say demonetized. It will not. Palestinians will not be able to get YouTube channels monetized. They will only get yellow marks on every video. No, it will be demilitarized. They will be unable to arm themselves, traditionally fight them, and they get all the hostages back. I mean, it's such a good deal. Definitely when you consider the fact that the commitment to a Palestinian state is vaguely in the future, meaning that there's no timetable. So they don't even have to commit to a timetable. This is the type of deal that Hamas would probably reject. But Netanyahu didn't even entertain it, even though the majority of Israelis supported it. And the majority of Israelis blame Netanyahu for leaving the security failures or not protecting Israel like he said he would, like he campaigned that he would, and left Israel vulnerable to attack on October 7th. That's not even to talk about the audio of him talking about propping up Hamas. There's a bunch of reasons as to why a lot of Democrats, a lot of Americans, a lot of American Jews, and most Israelis are not huge fans of Benjamin Netanyahu. But instead of going in any of these angles to talk about any of the nuances, because Trump couldn't talk about any of the nuances, he dumbs it down. No, they don't hate Benjamin Netanyahu. They all hate Israel. Steny Hoyer, my congressman for the longest time, he leads the trip to Israel every year. He's a Democrat. He's the second or third, I've not checked, it's been a while since I've checked, most powerful ranking Democrat in the House. Chuck Schumer is the most powerful ranking Democrat in the Senate. He's the Senate Majority Leader. And he is a big supporter of Israel. Big supporter of Israel. He's been a big supporter of Israel for decades. He voted in favor of basically every Israel aid deal. And he's still in favor of aid to Israel. He just doesn't like Benjamin Netanyahu. If you look up and down the majority of the Democratic Party, it is overwhelming support for Israel. There is a small collection of politicians, some of which I would say are more principled than the rest of the party, who are more willing to stand up to Israel and more willing to take the heat for standing up to Israel on humanitarian issues, treatment of the Palestinians, the future of a Palestinian state, Palestinian sovereignty, Palestinian self-determination. They're willing to stand up to them on these issues. But this collection of people is like 12 people. Maybe 15 people who are solidly in this camp. There are others that will condemn a bombing here, condemn a bombing there, that express concern at the lack of humanitarian aid that is getting into Gaza. But there's only a small collection there. The vast majority party are still solidly in Israel's corner, even as the polling data reflects a drastic change in the American perception of the Israel-Palestinian conflict, becoming more sympathetic to the Palestinians, even if the majority of Americans are still more sympathetic to the Israelis, just like the majority of elected Democrats are. But he goes on. Let me read this. So that's not even the worst part. It's this. Any Jewish person that votes for Democrats hates their religion. They hate everything about Israel, and they should be ashamed of themselves because Israel will be destroyed. Okay, so first things first, they hate everything about Israel. Let's just get that one out of the way. I've already talked about it. There's a lot of Democrats who support Israel. The majority of American Jews vote for the Democratic Party. That's because the majority of American Jews, which is not true in all instances, but are pretty liberal. And I don't want to say that they're all like Chuck Schumer, but many of them, when it comes to political ideology, are pretty similar to Chuck Schumer. And to be quite frank, a lot of the sentiment that Chuck Schumer was expressing on the Senate floor was sentiment that I've heard from some of my American Jewish friends. Now, so putting that, they hate everything about Israel. They don't. Silly. Let's do the last part, and then we'll start at the first part. I know we're doing it in a weird way, but we're leaving the worst for last. They should be ashamed of themselves because Israel will be destroyed. No, it won't. Israel won't be destroyed. Israel is not on the brink of destruction. Even on October 7th, Israel wasn't on the brink of destruction. On 9/11, America wasn't on the brink of destruction any more than Israel was on the brink of destruction on October 7th. Like, they were able to kill a lot of people. They were able to hurt us psychologically. They were able to do financial damage to us by attacking the World Trade Center. They were able to do damage to southern Israel, but they were nowhere close to destroying Israel. Or just like the Taliban, I mean, not the Taliban, the Al-Qaeda were no closer to destroying the United States. Where we and Israel, even if Israel still doesn't admit it publicly, are nuclear powers. We have the full power of the sun at our fingertips that we could throw at a nation if our state's survival was truly brought into question. Israel has one of the, if not the, and I would say does have the most competent armed forces within the Middle East. When it comes to professionalism, as in, being well trained, knowing how to operate their equipment, they have a professional Air Force, they have a professional tank corps, they have professional everything. Everything that a modern armed forces would need. It's part of the reason why the United States likes Israel as an ally. Is having a military ally in the region with military competency is very useful, especially when many of the leaders in the region don't even trust their own militaries. D. Jolly, thank you so much for the primer. I appreciate it. But Israel is not going to be destroyed. Israel's not at the brink of being destroyed. Israel's not close to being destroyed. And Democrats are actively in favor, the vast majority of them, of sending more aid to Israel. Even if we didn't send that aid to Israel, though, Israel would not be, let me say this again, destroyed. Now to the first part. Any Jewish person that votes for Democrats hates their religion. He's just claiming the Jews. He's just claiming them all. Only real Jews vote for Donald Trump. That is the tacit statement that is being made here, that if you're Jewish and you vote for Democrats because, say, hey, you supported the Infrastructure Act, maybe you supported the CHIPS Act, maybe you're a Jewish person who's like, hey, I'm going to get a job in the microchip industry. I have knowledge in the microchip industry, and I think it's good that Biden invested $50 billion here. I want manufacturing in this industry, which is important to the United States, important to the world too. I do want that. Or maybe they're in favor of any number of the things that Biden has done. When you talk to voters, a lot of the things that you're focusing on is not the same issues that they're focusing on. You'll be surprised. Sometimes you'll run into somebody and some obscure tax credit ends up being their number one issue because that tax credit got them thousands of dollars and is now helping them supplement their child going to college. Them being able to take more time off of work, them being able to invest in some car repairment or invest in their own home, or try to take some more debt off themselves. And so for him to just boil all the Jews down in America to Jews, all Israel, they all care about Israel. That's their main issue, right? There's already an assumption here that Democrats are worse than the issue, all this other, but Jew care Israel. So if me like Israel, then Jew must support me or fake Jew. That's the Donald Trump math here. That's the equation here. It's Jews love Israel. I love Israel. Therefore, if you don't love me, you don't love Israel, fake Jew. That's the equation. The wording's not pleasant, but that is what is tacitly being said here. I'm sorry to all the Jews in my audience who are voting for Joe Biden. I'm sorry to tell you that you hate your religion, and Donald Trump is the one to inform you. Known scholar on the Torah and of the Jewish faith, known Abrahamic faith scholar. He's traveled to every corner of the globe studying the Abrahamic faiths to figure out what a true Jew, a true Muslim, and a true Christian is. I'm happy that this scholar of Jewish tradition could tell you what makes a real Jew. Just gonna say, if you're trying to win people in suburbia who you lost last time, and you want to win over the Nikki Haley voters who are turning out 200,000, 220,000 votes in states like North Carolina, even after she jumps out, Donald Trump still losing 20% of the vote in a Republican primary, closed primary, by the way, to these other options, to Nikki Haley, to even Ron DeSantis. If you want to win those people over, if you want to win over the Jewish community, it's not by shaming them. Just like when Joe Biden said, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black. That wasn't winning over black support for Joe Biden. If black support Joe Biden won over was for other issues that he stood on and said, hey, look, these are things we're going to represent in office. These are things that I've done before. That's how he would try to win over those votes. That's how you do try to win over votes, not by shaming voters. Shaming voters doesn't work. Shaming the Jews is not going to work for Donald Trump.